Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Welcome to all of the members, subscribers, all the new, and to all of our viewers. We do these live streams regularly to have more in-depth talk and analysis. And I also have videos that I post regularly that are usually shorter with live updates. If you prefer shorter videos, please head to my video tab. If you prefer live streams long and with community participation, then you've come to the right place. This live stream is primarily to elaborate on a couple of things. Number one, the attack of Hezbollah today, to analyze what came in the Secretary General of Hezbollah's speech. He elaborated further on all of the details that came in the attack, why they delayed it, why it came in that way. And he specified exactly where Hezbollah targeted Israel. I also wanted to elaborate further how Hezbollah chose to attack directly on their own. And are we expecting something from Iran and Yemen, and when, and will that be coordinated with another attack from Hezbollah? So let's start from the beginning. And before I do that, I posted a couple of videos. Of course, number one, clarifying about this attack, and the second video was elaborating on Hamas's attack on Tel Aviv. Hamas still has strategic weapons to attack central Israel, ladies and gentlemen. And Netanyahu is saying that it's not the end. He's enabled Benjamin Netanyahu. I'll hopefully elaborate in this live stream a little bit further, and of course open the space up when I finish everything for all of your participation. And the response from the spokesperson of Al-Qassam brigades supporting Hezbollah and showing support to their attack and congratulating them and supporting the people of Lebanon. So at 5:05 today, Hezbollah launched an attack on Israel. Here are the updates from my previous video. And of course, you can go ahead and watch my initial video today about the actual response. Firstly, Israel indeed began attacking Lebanon before the attack happened. And during his speech, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Said Hassan Nasrallah, he elaborated further on that. Firstly, he said the reason for the delay, it's about 25 days after the assassination of Fuad Shukr, was to primarily have a successful campaign. He did not want to have a campaign that would potentially fail. They needed to establish their targets carefully, and they would have rather take their time than push themselves immediately into a direct hit on Israel and potentially fail. They did not want that. Now, Israel said they had a preemptive strike and they prevented a mass-scale attack on Israel. The Secretary General of Hezbollah debunked all of that. Firstly, with regards to the preemptive strike, he said that Israel started to attack Lebanon half an hour before Hezbollah started the attack. But what did they attack? According to Nasrallah, they attacked open spaces in Lebanon. They did not affect anything from their missile launchers or their missile capabilities. Why did that happen? Well, according to the narrative and according to the evidence that came from Nasrallah, I wouldn't even call it a narrative, there were movements because they decided to respond. And of course, Israel monitors the movements. There are movements because the people who want to carry out these attacks move from one place to another. None of them have been attacked. None of them have been directly hit, or Hezbollah did not say that they had casualties. However, because they had this movement, and Israel, of course, monitors Lebanon through satellites and everything. Not just Israel, the partners, the supporters of Israel, the US, the UK, and some of the Arab states surrounding them. All right. They realized that Hezbollah fighters are moving, and they established that Hezbollah are about to carry out an attack. So they sent 100 fighter jets, panic mode in Israel immediately, went into Lebanon and started attacking every area that they think Hezbollah is going to attack them from. Primarily mountainous areas. Now, the Secretary General of Hezbollah elaborated. He said that we removed our missiles, our strategic missiles, from mountainous areas, and we haven't used so far strategic missiles. We might use them. We might use them soon. We might use them later. We might use them soon. We might use them later. So Israel indeed started the attack before Hezbollah started attacking Israel. When Hezbollah began the attack, none of their attacks were intercepted in Lebanon. 2 of their missile launchers were hit after they carried out the attack. And again, according to Nasrallah, they have many missile launchers not affected. Firstly, he spoke about the missile launchers. He said, firstly, if we want to pamper them and make them look shiny and what have you, they'll probably cost us a max of $10,000, $10,000, the Katyusha launchers. Compare that with the 100 Israeli fighter jets going to Lebanon, landing so many missiles, each costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. That was the reasoning. And the fact that Hezbollah would rather a missile launcher get destroyed, not one of their members getting hurt. So according to him, 2 of them were hit through this attack of Israel in Lebanon with their 100 fighter jets attacking in Lebanon. That's number one. So there was an attack, definitely not to the scale of Israel, and it did not affect what Hezbollah were about to do, and it definitely wasn't the scale that Israel said it would be. Hezbollah were not planning to launch 5, 6, or 10,000 missiles like Israel said initially. They planned 300 missiles. They ended up launching 340 missiles and drones, and they deliberately sent out the Katyushas initially to exhaust the Iron Dome so that the drones can reach their destination. What's the destination? The destination was a base in Israel, a base that belongs to Amman, 2 of them actually, but one of them is called Galilot. Galilot is a main base for Amman, the Military Intelligence Directorate. Of course, it's linked to the Mossad. That has Unit 8200 in it. They targeted it successfully. However, what Hezbollah are saying, we're monitoring the results of this attack, and we're going to see what Israel releases. What Israel releases when it comes to information. Of course, alongside the other bases that they attacked that I spoke about in the initial video. So these were the things that we understood further from the previous video that I published. In relation to the Israeli ship, Dvorah, Israel later admitted that at least 1 Israeli from the Navy was killed. Some reports said 3. Initially said 1 was killed, 2 wounded. Then we had reports from Israel saying 3 were killed. And we had images of this Israeli ship being hit. Nasrallah in his speech did not mention that. He did not say anything about that. Israel, on the other hand, confirmed that without Hezbollah confirming anything. And they said that, yes, indeed it was hit, but it was hit from an Iron Dome missile. Iron Dome pieces. Okay, it's in the sea. Why is the Iron Dome there? Well, where is it going exactly? And did the Iron Dome fall by accident? Like that, targeting a ship in the middle of the sea? I mean, what's the percentage of likelihood of that happening? Or did the Iron Dome clock on this as a target and then went down and took it? Interesting stuff. But Israel confirmed. And that was off the coast of Nahariya. There was a very interesting point, and then I'll get to the analyzing part and what's going to happen with the other fronts, what we think will happen later on. Nasrallah said that if Israel, because they called it phase 1 of the response. If you hear someone saying phase 1 of our response, you would automatically assume there's phase 2 and 3 and 4 or whatever, at least another phase. in itself something very massive. Why? Because it'll keep Israel in panic mode, in full panic mode, and in full devastation for another period to come. And that's only Hezbollah, and that's not the other resistance fronts. And they're probably doing that deliberately to keep Israel exhausted and on high alert and drain Israel completely. Because that's something they also mentioned, the fact that Israel is waiting so much and how much that's exhausting Israel. He said, if we view from Israel that this attack targeted a figure that we view as senior to a level where we might say, okay, this is a good enough response for the assassination of Fuad Shukr, who knows? So he didn't say we'll stop there, and he didn't confirm anything, but said we'll see. Otherwise, we will continue. All right. Saying there might be a likelihood of Hezbollah stopping and applying pressure to get information from Israel. It's a tactic to get information from Israel. It's not likely to happen, in my opinion. Why? Because number one, Benjamin Netanyahu and his cabinet were 13 floors under the ground, because they had sirens and they know they're being targeted and the security is so high. So are we going to establish that senior figures in special units who were over the ground when Hezbollah know where they are? Not likely. Not likely. So even then they would have hidden bunkers. Meaning we're likely to see another response from Hezbollah. We're likely to see another response from Hezbollah, although Israel tried to spin everything as if they intercepted this massive campaign that wasn't even planned. Of course, to just tone it down with the Israeli population, because they, that's from the Israelis who are left, of course, millions are fleeing. No one has trust. And now you have officially heads of northern settlements disconnecting officially. Remember when we spoke about the Declaration of Independence for North, the Galilee part? Margaliot declaring disconnection from Israel. Now we have multiple settlements, heads of settlements saying, I'm disconnected with Israel. Government, I don't want to have anything to deal with you. Meaning, like Anthony Blinken said a couple of months ago, Israel lost sovereignty over the north. And there's a reason why in Israel they say we lost the north. We lost the north. Over 100,000 fled. Israel has no answer to Hezbollah. Most of the people say they don't want to come back. And you have the people who have no faith in Israel. Israel can't protect them to a level where they started to establish these units made up of people from the settlements to protect themselves in case an elite unit from Hezbollah goes to Israel. That's another thing that Nasrallah mentioned in his speech, the probability of an invasion. The probability of an invasion to Israel if things escalate. This, in short, really briefly, these were the main things that the Secretary General of Hezbollah spoke about. What do we understand here and what's likely to happen? Before we do that, of course, Israel, they had their other narrative. And Netanyahu said, this is not the end. This is not the end. I have my eyes on Hezbollah and I have my eyes on Tehran. I have my eyes on Nasrallah, I have my eyes on Khamenei. Meaning Netanyahu is escalating further, which is normal because this is what he's been doing, escalating, enabled by the United States and his genocide cartel, all of the countries supporting Israel, or, acting like they are applying pressure on Israel, but giving them whatever they need. Netanyahu has no motive to stop because he's getting whatever he wants from the United States administration. They're saying that we're applying pressure, but they're sending him 20 and 30 and 50 billion and more fighter jets and more bombs. That's all garbage, all theater talk. The United States is worse than Israel because they are approving, enabling, pushing, and supporting this genocide completely. If they had any genuine interest in stopping the crimes of this child murdering entity, they would have done that from a long time ago. They're not interested. They're reckless. They probably don't want all that war, but they are enabling this depraved, barbaric child murdering entity committing a genocide and an infanticide in Gaza. Meaning they're like them and they're worse than them in many cases. Anyone who supports this entity and anyone who covers up their crimes, they're just as depraved as they are, if not worse than them. Let that be clear. Hezbollah based on what we expect Israel to do, will have another response. When is that response going to come? Probably a couple of more weeks. But who knows? It could be in a couple of days. And who knows? It could be coordinated. And who knows? It might be linked with one group. And if all of the other resistance fronts will tell you this is phase one of my response, then how long are they going to keep Israel on tenterhooks for? How long can Israel sustain that? Israel is in a tragic situation, and Netanyahu is pushing them for a further tragic situation. Like I said before, if there are like 15 self-destruction buttons in Israel, Netanyahu is pushing on every single one of them. Every single self-destruct button he's pushing. Okay. They're likely to respond because Israel is not likely to admit that any senior figure was killed in this attack. They don't want to give this victory to Hezbollah, and they have no interest in really de-escalating. They had options to de-escalate. They had options to solve this. They had an option with the day after the 7th of October de-escalate, because Hamas themselves, the party in question at the time, told them immediately we're willing to start negotiating now on a prisoner exchange because we want to clear the Israeli prisons from the real hostages, from the real victims who are suffering and being killed and raped and tortured to death in the Zionist entities' prisons. So they're likely to have another response. Then what's going to happen with Yemen? They still haven't responded. What's going to happen with Iran? Well, first and foremost, we established that the retaliation, or at least part of the retaliation, can come from one side. That doesn't necessarily rule out another multi-front attack or a multi-front massive attack on Israel, but it also doesn't rule out many more attacks to come on Israel, several from Hezbollah, several from Yemen, and one or two or three, or I don't know how many from Iran. Interesting things happened during the last couple of days. Firstly, yesterday a senior figure, if I'm not mistaken, it was Mohammed Salami from the IRGC, said, soon you will be hearing good news. 10 hours later, around 10 hours, 15 hours later, like next dawn, Hezbollah have the attack. Meaning, of course, Iran knows Hezbollah is going to do that attack. They had a couple of progresses very recently. Firstly, they have a national unity government. That hasn't happened in Iran since 2001. So Israel was hoping to attack Iran and destabilize the government from the beginning. Don't forget, the president just won. He just came in, and he already had one resignation initially, but that all of the destabilization attempts failed because now they have a national unity government. So he's with everyone now. They are in a stronger position now. Why? Because Israel is being exhausted heavily only from Lebanon and Gaza, meaning Iran can take its time. Also, they could potentially wait, give it a bit more time, perhaps for the US forces to reduce the number of forces in the Middle East, because that costs, of course, a lot of money. Not that the US cares about money. It looks like they don't care about anything. These people print money whenever they need to. So we're likely to see, firstly, an attack from Yemen. Yemen are saying that the attack is coming. They constantly reiterate. They had a statement today that, no, the attack is coming. We will be attacking, but we have our preparations. And again, their preparations, they could have any reasons for their preparation. They could have similar reasons to Hezbollah, like having the intel on a specific target, waiting for the right time, waiting for a certain weak spot, waiting for a person to pop up, all of these things. However, with Benjamin Netanyahu's tone, with the grave failure of the negotiations in Egypt, including this facade of, a potential withdrawal of a couple of 100 meters from the Philadelphia corridor, although we heard reports that Benjamin Netanyahu or his administrators was showing some sort of a leniency on the Netzarim line in central Gaza. But again, you're talking about Israel, hyper-pathological liars. A pathological liar, the medical term, someone who, compulsive, obsessive compulsive liar, someone who lies 5 times a day for 6 months at least. You're talking about a state with people who have been lying more than they breathe for the past century. That's why we call them hyper-pathological liars. So you don't believe anything that they say. However, you try and read between the lines. It's very heated. It doesn't look like it's going to de-escalate. Israel, although they tried to sell it out as a massive victory to prevent a far bigger attack, it's not working, because you just had this response from the settlements up north saying, I'm not going to deal with you as a government anymore. Hardly anyone is buying it in Israel. Of course, you'll have imbeciles and you'll have sheep believing what the Israeli government says, but what can you do? Some people are not treatable. Some people are like dead people walking, there's no point. But in general, many people are not trusting what's happening, and they see that this reckless psychopathic lunatic leading the country is getting what he wants from the United States of America. He's getting everything that he needs from the administration. He's getting the backing. They're talking about pressure. Western governments are sending delegations. None of that is helping, The people who were released from Gaza are protesting against him. Well, what else do we need? Like the first person who was released from Gaza, up until the last person who was released from Gaza, are protesting against Netanyahu. From the first to the last, all of them. And one of them was in prison. Right? What more do you want? What more do you want? The people who are most interested in the people who were kidnapped from Israel on the 7th of October are against this man. And he's still enabled. And the country is acting like, we want to ceasefire and we want to hang and we're applying. But they're buying his narrative and they're supporting, leading the region to more and more chaos. It's just about who does the next move when and who uses the next step to escalate further. So far, it's been Benjamin Netanyahu. Escalation after escalation, ignoring every single potential for a ceasefire, even when Hamas agrees to a ceasefire, ignoring it even when the President of the United States declares a ceasefire, ignoring even if his negotiating delegation agrees on a ceasefire, to continue in his position with his psychopathic lunatics next to him, leading the region to the abyss, and potentially to a regional and global war, and who knows, maybe a nuclear war. This is what I wanted to speak with you about. Let me open the space up for the community. See if you have any questions or clarifications for me. And again, thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. If you have anything for me, if you wouldn't mind highlighting it just so that I don't miss it. But apologies in advance if I'm unable to reach all of your participations. Firstly, Walid B, thank you so much for your super. Much appreciated. Mona Nasrallah, no, that's Kirk. Kirk, welcome, my brother. I meant to highlight a question from Mona Nasrallah saying, will the USA leave Zionist state hanging? Well, they're supporting them with everything that they need. And by that, they're giving them the hanging rope by doing that. So they're supporting them. The only thing that's in question is, will they support them in attack if an all-out war erupts? So far, they have proven by the level of support that they don't mind, of course, that they support and enable a genocide and recklessness and all of Israel's depravity and ugliness. The United States and all of Israel's Western state supporters and the Arab states who support it indirectly or, under the table, they're just as bad as them. And when it comes to defense, they will actively participate to defend Israel. But we haven't seen an example of a combat participation physically with people. We've seen, of course, intel being sent, the weapons are being sent from the US, the UK, showing how moral the country is by supporting this most moral army in the world. Jordan helped intercept some of the missiles from Iran. So you have that, but what you don't have is a coalition. You don't have like an Iraq coalition or a Afghanistan coalition, people who are willing to go and fight on a genocidal entity's behalf. We still don't have that. Free Palestine. Assalamu ala Mahmoud wa Mittawa Habib Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam alayhi sallam alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah habibi, and thank you so much for your super. And a Golden Sun as well, thank you so much, and greetings to everyone in Michigan and all across the world listening. Welcome everyone. Gulliberg, Rumble founder Chris Pavlovsky leaves Europe due to the arrest of Telegram's Durov. Interesting point, right? They just arrested, I heard that, the CEO of Telegram. Is it because he allows people more breathing space in Telegram? They're targeting these people. Why? Because they let people share things that actually happen in the world. That are not graphic, by the way. Not like you dangerous business or what have you. For example, when we saw the groups from Israel, Israelis, they were the ones who started leaking the details of the attack on that naval ship. If it wasn't for them, Israeli media would have ignored it. But it spread like wildfire to a level where military censorship wouldn't be able to stop it. Therefore, they allowed mainstream media in Israel to publish it, but cover it up, accident and this and that, whatever narrative, to have damage control. But this is the freedom that the West talks about, isn't it? This is the freedom of speech, right? Freedom of speech up until it reaches certain points. And unfortunately, instead of taking these people as pillars, and of course you have many examples, Julian Assange and many others, people, being attacked for having freedom of speech or sharing sensitive information. Instead of looking at these people as people who help improve democracies, because that's really what it is. Democracy has to be pushed, right? The boundaries need to be pushed, because otherwise they'll come at you and have more control on you until they choke you. This is what they want. So you constantly have to push the barriers, to improve it further and have more breathing space so that people can say what they like without intimidation and without these imposed ideologies or causes, that the government wants to push and to poison people's minds and brains. All of a sudden you'll hear everyone talking about it, but no, genuine, like real causes, you know what I mean? Some things that happen in the world, they don't want that. And it's a sad thing to see. It's a sad thing to see, but it's also a sign that people, everyone really, needs to have more responsibility when it comes to sharing and doing. Thank you, Gully, for your participation. New Glow, did Iran wait for USA move, then they will react? Or they wait perfect time and position with missiles? Look, again, like I said, after the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Iran, firstly, they said they will retaliate. So we have reason to believe that they will retaliate. Why? Because in April, they didn't initially say that we will retaliate, but they retaliated. They shook the whole world. Now they said we will retaliate, and a big retaliation, but they haven't retaliated. Why? Because they know, and everyone else involved knows that a retaliation could push for another attack that will force everyone to participate. force everyone to participate. And like with any major event, really, Iran needs to be in a position where it protects itself as much as possible, because you're talking about a very big country. They want to save themselves as much as possible, and they would have their reasons. However, I would be highly surprised if they don't personally attack, But so far they're punishing Israel with this delay, and they're probably waiting for things to potentially tone down a little bit. Yvonne, are Israelis aware of true numbers of IOF being taken by the resistance in Gaza? Many people in Israel know how much they are being lied to on mainstream media, and many Israelis don't. Many Israelis are completely delusional. But many of them realize what's happening because they are saying other things. Like, although you have a lot of censorship in Israel and the mainstream narrative is very manipulated and spinned, and they know that they have a big liar leading the state that they call a crime minister, many of them. If you see Israeli protests, you'll see them calling Netanyahu crime minister, not prime minister. But for their own reasons, they probably wouldn't want to spread all of this information. However, like the true numbers, no one knows them but the people actually counting the bodies and registering them in Israel. But the people who have relatives in the army, who work in hospitals, they know details, right? They know what's happening. And again, it's probably the fact that they don't want to cause more panic. That's why you have so many millions of Israelis leaving the country. And don't underestimate how many people, to them, Israel is done. It's roasted. And thank you so much, Yvonne, for your participation. Greetings to everyone in Ireland. Marvin is saying, heard heavy censorship has rocket attack, drone attack. Do you know if Tel Aviv hit any major infrastructure hits, death count, Ziolai, or admit truth? Ziolai, you said it. But despite all the censorship, you still have people sending videos. You still have the Associated Press and other press groups having permanent cameras over cities like Haifa that monitor all of the northern part from Haifa onwards, that show you what's landing and what's not landing. Secondly, in Tel Aviv, I personally saw no confirmation of Hezbollah's attack on the base. The only thing that they released was a video showing satellite imagery of the base and what's in it, and again detailed information clarifying that they don't only have satellite information, they have ground information too, but we haven't seen like the drone going in unless someone will have it and publish it later on, or Israel admits something. And with regards to the Tel Aviv attack of Hamas, yes, we saw that, and we saw an explosion in inside of Tel Aviv. And while I'm browsing here, I'll try and find one of the videos for you. Okay, let me share this with you quickly. So this man was recording this smoke in this area, night, and he's saying that it's in the area of the military base, that this was an area in the military base. Of course, it was nighttime, but you can clearly see some of the smoke. That was from Israel. So clearly things are landing, although, the country wouldn't want to share this information. That was from Yvonne. Chocolate pudding. Thank you so much. Said, have you seen June 2, bro? No, I haven't. I haven't. But thank you so much for your super. Muna's saying, do you think it'll be all at once or separate attacks from the resistance? Well, clearly by what Hezbollah have done now, they are trying to apply more pressure on Israel by having more uncertainty. You see, everyone was waiting for response in Israel to have certain certainty and closure. What Hezbollah gave them in this attack is the total opposite of certainty and closure. They kept it open and they kept everything uncertain. So they made things so much more complicated and stressful. Why? Because they might have another attack. They might have a coordinated second attack. And if they're going to do their attack based on the time frame that they've done this attack with, like 4 weeks in approximately, what is Israel going to wait 4 weeks and 4 weeks and 4 weeks for another response? And then when Hezbollah finish Yemen, will tell you 2 months, 3 months down the line, I'm beginning my series of responses. Do you understand the calculation? So Israel would think, okay, I have a year of retaliations. However, it showed that Hezbollah are calculated, by the way, that they don't go all guns blazing with any attack. They don't break all the tools, that they act in a far greater responsibility than Israel. I mean, they're incomparable with the level of responsibility that they have in comparison to Israel. Everything is calculated, everything is timely. What we say is what we do, likewise. So, what it gave Israel is more uncertainty, and it kept everything open. And Anemoy, thank you so much for that. And Lydia, thank you so much. She said, why must there be a buffer zone in Gaza, not outside? Because that's what the colonizers want. That's what the supremacist colonizers want. The supremacist colonizer is entitled for the lower class race person's land and resources. That's why. What do you mean? So that's why they want to expel the population, kill everyone, because they are of a superior race, and the people in Gaza are of a lower class race. They're not human to them, to Israel and the genocide cartel crew. So yeah, of course, we'll have a buffer zone. You talk about people who will have who have planning buildings over the corpses of infants in Gaza. Next level depravity. You're talking about different things. So that shows you the nature of this neo-colonialist, expansionist, racist, abhorrent terrorist entity. Squatting establishment. They come, they terrorize, they steal, they expel, and they look to push further. Supported by the bigger colonizers, supported by the US, supported by the UK, supported by France, supported by Germany. This is their nature. And they only concede when they're met with force. Not through a reality check or a realization or what have you. Verlith is saying, where did Hezbollah say in the name of God, the destroyer of tyrants, was it via Twitter or Manar? Can you pull it up, the statement? Yeah, of course I can, no problem. Show you the statements from Hezbollah today. Sorry, by the way, that I didn't elaborate on that. Thanks for reminding me, because I said in the previous video, I think that I will elaborate on the statements, but here you have it. Just a second. Okay, where do we go? Where did they go? Man, use. Here you are. So this is their statement. And if you look, let me just scroll it for you. This is what they said, when they declared their operations. Islamic resistance in Lebanon announced in a statement Sunday morning that its initial response to the brutal Zionist aggression on the southern suburbs of Beirut, which led to the martyrdom of the great jihadist leader Sayyid Fuad Shukr, a number of civilians, including women and children, confirmed that the first phase has been completed with complete success, right? And they said, the fighters targeted a number of enemy sites, barracks, Iron Dome platforms, and this is the destroyer of tyrants for you, right? That's the statement number one, begins here. These were kind of in short of what they've actually done. And this is the first statement. This was the initial statement after the beginning of the response. In the name of God, destroyer of tyrants, initial statement from Islamic resistance in Lebanon, we will surely take revenge on the criminals. They also use the Quranic verse for this. And then they continue to elaborate what they've done. And they continued with another statement, elaborating further that these were the bases that they targeted, right? And their final statement, the only thing that was missing from their final statement was the fact that they ended up launching 340 rather than 320 missiles. That was the only thing that they did not elaborate in these statements, because they had to. They initially planned 300, then they ended up launching 20 further, and then another 20 for some reason. They probably wanted to exhaust the Iron Dome further, and they ended up with 340. And the Secretary General of Hezbollah, he elaborated that all of that was meant just to exhaust the Iron Dome, and that they wanted the Iron Dome to be activated, basically. Whenever the Iron Dome is not activated, they don't want that. They want it to be activated so that their drones can go and land successfully where they're meant to land. Muhammad Silm is saying, my father-in-law said the other day 30,000 Israeli soldiers killed, over 70,000 Israeli troops have been injured. These numbers could be very, very accurate in my estimate, and these are conservative estimates as well. The minimum conservative estimate is 20,000. And a simple elaboration would be, Israel at one point confirmed that there were 100,000 casualties. reports from Israel. Of course, Israel officially would tell you a couple of hundred, right? And the other day they said the official casualties told us 10,000, right? So they started to reach 5 figures now. But we all know that they always lie, and they only admit, by the way, because the resistance proves it with videos. So, and that's the minority of attacks. The resistance records a very small number of their attacks, and no, not all of them. And they have to admit when they see some of these videos, because the people say, okay, what happened with these people? You had 10 troops inside a building was detonated, or Merkava was hit and destroyed, and you didn't say anyone died, right? However, if you just take the figure of 30,000 disabled, and by the way, someone with some people who have chopped limbs, they're considered like lightly wounded and not fully like disabled in some cases. 30,000 disabled, meaning at least 30,000 wounded. 30,000 disabled. How many people get disabled from being wounded at war? 1 out of 4 or 5? So 150, 120,000 wounded. If you are unrealistically conservative and say 1 out of 2, which is unrealistic, you would estimate that 1 out of 3 from the 60,000, meaning 20,000, are killed, because that's the average of general urban warfare. And what's happening in Gaza is not urban warfare. It's destruction warfare. Urban warfare is intact buildings. Israel destroyed Gaza and is trying to fight inside it, making life more difficult for their troops. And killing way more troops is more difficult to fight like that. If they kept things intact and knew where they were going, and their troops were actually fighting based on at least some areas that resemble anything urban, it would have been different. But they're fighting in destruction. So they've given the Palestinian resistance the upper hand because all of their operations are under the ground. So from their perspective, I'll pop up from another destroyed building, or in many cases, they will dig a tunnel opening from under a certain base in Gaza, where Israel is established with, 6, 7 tanks and a command base or what have you, and they'll start targeting them and go and disappear. So this number could be very accurate, but again, I don't think we will ever truly know unless someone from within, from inside of Israel, has access to these figures and decides to release them. Otherwise, I don't think anyone will really know. But what you can do is estimate, and you estimate based on not only some of these reports that are coming out from Israel, but from the desperation for troops. When Israel takes unprecedented measures like enforcing this conscription on a community that they've never conscripted by force previously in the form of the Orthodox, like increasing the age where you'd be exempt and forcing people who have mental issues to go back to fight. Some of them committed suicide in Israel. All of these things show you how many people were killed as well. Free Palestine, thank you, and I agree. One state for everyone, the state of Palestine. I think both of them are the same. The state of Palestine, or one state for everyone who wants to live democratically, everyone, regardless of your race or religion. And that's it. And it's very simple. Yet, the countries who constantly destroy our brains with calls for democracy struggle to kind of push Israel and ask it for democracy. Ramplan saying, Mahmoud Yusuf and Sheikh Imran Hussein is saying that Israel fooled Hamas on October 7th to a trap because they wanted to eliminate all Palestinians. I listened to him a couple of times before, but I don't usually listen to him because this man bases his whole ideology on unsubstantiated eschatology that goes against the true essence of the Quran. And all of his understanding and analysis is based on that. And with regards to Israel fooling Hamas on October the 7th, Israel could have had prior knowledge about the October the 7th. However, Hamas definitely wanted to go out on an attack on Israel. That's undeniable. Did Israel know and enable it to a certain extent? Maybe. Why? Because we saw that they have bigger financial and economic plans and plans to ethnically cleanse the people, right? Netanyahu started to hand out gas exploration contracts. You started to have talks about the Ben Gurion Canal. So they might have, but not that they fooled them into it. Like, you know what I mean? Israel, whenever it wants to go out on genocide or barbarism or massacres, they can create their own reasons. They can create their own reasons. Israel and Israeli soldiers can regularly kill someone and go and take a picture of him with a knife next to him. Of course, when it comes to Gaza, you're talking about the biggest event, the biggest genocide. And could they have anticipated something but did not realize the extent of it? Maybe there's an argument. But again, if you're relying also on certain evidence coming from Israel, I don't think that that's going to happen. Because Israel, although many people called for, and some people already established inquiries and lawsuits, the state will not have a fully state-backed and transparent investigation for the 7th of October. Because what that would reveal is that Israel massacred Israelis on the 7th of October, and they don't want that. They already have problems with the people who started to leak information, and some of the images that we saw about Israeli planes shooting revelers, right? And the tanks in the Israeli kibbutzes, they don't want that. Any true investigation within Israel on the 7th of October, well, that's it. If there's any hope, it would be completely gone. Not that there is much hope already. So to them, October the 7th is absolutely the last thing that they can gather most Israelis on. They can no longer gather Israelis on Israel. They can no longer gather Israelis on Zionism. They can no longer gather Israel on any of the core establishments in Israel, the military or the political. They cannot gather them, but they can gather them on the 7th of October. Look what happened to us. Look what happened to us. Look at this collective suffering that we faced. So for people to start finding out that, no, this is what happened, it's going to be the final nail in the coffin. And Amir Ryder is saying, question salam, this looked like Hezbollah checking the response and defense preparations of Israel. It was pathetic readiness before the big attack by Iran and Hizb. That could be a case, totally, because many of the things that they do, they test. Wars generally is testing everything. You know, wars, you're testing your weapons, you're giving a showcase for your weapons to manufacture and sell afterwards and tell countries, oh, look how we did here, do you want to buy? So they could have been, but listen, they declared that it was phase 1 of the response. So whether they did test it or not, they had it. And with regards to prepare it for Iran and Hizb, not necessarily Iran, because the Iranian missiles are going to come from the Gulf, from over the Gulf, right? So you're talking about different interception. You're talking about, firstly, the interception of the aircraft carriers. in the Arab Gulf or Persian Gulf, from the aircraft carriers, from the fighter jets on the aircraft carriers, then potentially from Saudi Arabia and from Jordan, leading to Israel. And you're talking about many countries participating there. Iran already tested the waters with that in April. But when it comes to Hezbollah, unless Iran, their end target is these areas up north. And Marvin saying, why don't you hear about the danger of greater Israel expansion, more refugees, wars, chaos? IDF has greater Israel patch on the uniform. No one called them out. It's because they're trying to cover up their crimes. They're trying to cover up their crimes as much as possible. It's not that they only have a greater Israel plan. You have people in power with the greater Israel plan. For example, Smotrich, he had a speech, I think it was in France last year, and he had the greater Israel map in front of him. Now, let alone the fact that it's already taking down the West Bank and Gaza, that's already like nothing to many people. But parts of Sinai, parts of Jordan, they know that. And that's why Egypt was very careful when it comes to the Palestinian refugees initially. Because they knew Israel is planning to expand, only to be proven right later on. You had people in the government showing their support for an expansion. The same guy who said nuke Gaza, he was supporting an expansion of Israel in the Sinai Peninsula. And thanks to everyone participating with your comments. Let me see if we have any more questions. And ID, thank you so much for that. And for the comment. Where else is he going to go? Jay saying, I heard that Palestinian land is being illegally sold by who? How can IC stop it? Well, stealing Palestinian land is the core formation of the state of Israel. They stole the land. They expelled the population. They stole the land. They bought squatters through terror to come and sit in these people's homes, sometimes with the dinner table still ready and with the coffee still warm, right? They did that in historical Palestine. It's still being implemented in the West Bank. Now they're committing a genocide in Gaza. However, there are key locations, primarily in the West Bank, but if you take the pinnacle of that attempt, that would be Jerusalem. Israel has a constant plan to Judaize Jerusalem. They call it the Judaization of Jerusalem. So they'll give names, certain locations Jewish names. Many of the, like, for example, certain cemeteries in towns and cities, they Judaized the name. Even if you have a religious scholar who's Muslim or Christian and he has a certain locations, they'll come and give it a Jewish name and act like they had a holy Jewish man living there thousands of years ago. But in Jerusalem, for example, they will use the carrot and stick method. In the old city, because the old city it has like a Jewish quarter, a Christian quarter, and a Muslim quarter. They want to take over everything. One of the recent biggest scandals was what they've done with the Armenian church. They wanted to grab some of the land owned by the Armenian church, and they had a deal with a certain corrupt figure within their community, selling land to someone from Australia, acting like he was private. for a very large sum of money, and then he fled. And the Armenian Christian community is trying to challenge that. In many cases, they'll act like they're Arab. So they'll come and give you offers. You don't buy 4, 5, 6 million, 10. Some people get offered $40 million for a shop in Jerusalem. Do you know that? And they won't sell because they know what Israel is doing. Lots of money. Then they will try the stick. What's the stick? Oh, you can't work here anymore. This is illegal. Try and give you more problems when it comes to your house, restrict movement, ban relatives from coming, ban you for all of these things. They do that on a regular basis. People live like that. Some people in Jerusalem, they spend their life trying to take fires down, from one fire to another fire, especially the ones who are close to Al-Aqsa compound. So by whom? The ICC. Listen, the ICC and the ICJ, they're unable to stop a genocide. Are they going to stop someone from stealing a house? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to be able to stop someone from stealing a house using a carrot and stick. Rizwan, thank you so much, my brother, for that. Kate, and I'll end it up with Kate. Kate is saying, prediction, do you think Milikovsky will give up the demand on Rafah crossing, Netzarim? Have they lost the northern Galilee and the Golan Heights? Look, I think Benjamin Netanyahu is on a mission, and he hasn't shown any signs of de-escalation. And it's unprecedented. It is unprecedented. Firstly, because of how harmful it is for Israel. So let's say you're pro-Israel and you're seeing this existential threat. The first thing you would do is end the cause of the existential threat. Ending the cause means ending the war. So I think I want to end the war, even if that means I take a tactical loss. I won't admit a tactical loss, but they can interpret it as a tactical loss or a strategic loss or whatever it is, but I'm going to save myself. That's for any Israeli who's thinking strategically, and there are many of them. And we quote them, and they speak. From the military establishment, security, previous politicians, they know what's happening. So he hasn't done any of that despite the level of harm to Israel. And what he's been pushing for is the contrary, further and further escalation. He will poke Iran, he'll poke Hezbollah, kill a senior figure, everything to make it impossible to reach a ceasefire. So from his perspective, he's only negotiating for the sake of getting the US money. So the United States administration gave him a condition: if you want the money, go and negotiate. And to Benjamin Netanyahu, of course, that's not pressure on me because I'm getting the money, so therefore I can do whatever I want, but I'll act like I'm negotiating. Excellent trade. Someone tells you, hey, Kate, get whatever the hell you want and just go and negotiate. But here's 10 billion. Of course I'll negotiate. I'll act like I act like I want a solution, and thank you for the 10 billion. And next time I want 20 billion, but negotiate, but act harder. I'll go and act harder for you, and I'll say, yeah, probably I might have some concessions here and there, and thank you for the 20 billion, and for the jets, and for the MK-84s and 83s and 82s, and what have you. So I don't think he genuinely wants to. I think it's all garbage, because he constantly adds more things. So why should he give up anything? Netzarim and Rafah are new. Don't forget that, because previously they agreed supposedly to withdraw, right? Then they went and occupied these areas and said, okay, we will withdraw, but not from these areas. What do you mean? So that means that he is constantly escalating. I don't think he is going to give up. It's all show. Even his talk about withdrawing from Netzarim and Rafah, They lost the north. They did lose the north. They lost the Galilee. The Golan Heights is a little bit more different, but there's still massive problems. But in general, that whole region is lost. Over 100,000 people evacuated. Many of them declared cutting the ties with Israel, including today. And most of the people who fled said they will never come back. As in, I'm saying by statistics, they were asked, there were polls, and they said we're not going back. Figures were ranging from 40% a few months back that reached 80 and 90% now, apart from those who fled Israel. So yeah, they did. I don't know how they can come up with a vision to solve it. Some people think an all-out war, a decisive, massive attack on Lebanon would give them that reassurance. I don't think so. I do not think so. Others think we need to reach a political agreement to do that. But again, they're not going down the path of any political solution, meaning we're only seeing more escalation. That is being enabled by primarily the United States of America. And we'll end it up with Kate here. Thank you so much. Lovely to be with you again, everyone, for this live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sorry if I missed some of your comments. Usually we'll miss some comments in the live stream, but I appreciate your contribution and support. Like I said, posted 2 other videos that you can go ahead and watch. I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. If something urgent and significant pops up, I'll probably be in a random time with you. Apart from that, thanks again a lot for your comments and contribution and input. Thank you so much for everyone who sent supers: Walid, Golden Sun, Free Palestine, Chocolate Pudding, Annie Moy, Lydia Verlith, Marvin, and Heidi, and Rizwan, and Joan. Welcome. Thank you for the membership. Stay blessed, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day or evening or night, depending on where you are. And I will see you soon in the next video. Take care, everyone. Peace.